Hello and welcome everybody to a GGvision interview with JP McDaniel, a name you've heard a lot about and definitely seen his casts. JP, it's a pleasure to have you here this fine morning where you are, almost. How are we doing?
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on, man. It's 12:45. I kind of complained earlier that this was too early, but I probably shouldn't bitch so much.
Well, you do live the gamer rockstar dream, of course, so we'll let that one pass. Because you're basically the face and voice of Major League Gaming, which has been, the most hugest and influential entity in North American esports, and particularly Starcraft 2 this past year. So that's pretty cool. What is it like working professionally within esports like that?
It's kind of weird, honestly. I see. Obviously, I'm all trying to be as most in depth with the community and being involved with the community, and then going back and working with kind of a professional organization like that. It's sometimes a little bit hard to try to bring the community into that, trying to make them be as responsive to it as possible and make sure they know kind of what the community wants is really what I've been trying to do this entire time. And hopefully that shows, or hopefully that's what I'm going to continue to do. And we'll have to see how that goes in 2011.
Definitely. And of course, you are the host of the State of the Game podcast, which is something we'll be talking more about later. But staying on the MLG topic, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think MLG is, or at least in previous years, used to focus a lot on console gaming titles, perhaps
Yes,
still
you're
do,
correct.
Halo and other titles like that. Now they have transitioned into doing World of Warcraft, Starcraft 2 and more. Are they good at it? I know there have been some complaints about this and that, but they're also giving us free kick-ass tournaments. In all fairness, of course, your employer might be listening, I'm aware of that, but how do they handle the business of esports?
It's kind of a weird question. How do they handle the business of esports? I mean, I think a lot of people, when they first heard that MLG was going to be doing StarCraft 2, they were a little bit not so much confused, but kind of worried to see how a console, or at least previous to this year, they were pretty much console based. We did have World of Warcraft, but it wasn't as focused and featured as StarCraft 2. And I think a lot of people were kind of worried that they were going to come in and do a lot of things that was going to change the game for the worse, at least in North America. But they were also the community is very smart in the fact that they knew that it was going to take an organization like an MLG in North America to really bring StarCraft 2 to the forefront of esports here. And I think a lot of people are happy. There's obviously some rules that need to be looked at moving forward to 2011. I don't want to mention it because whenever I do, it seems to spur this long and drawn out, very boring debate. But I think the community knows what I'm talking about. So.
Yeah, we do. Of course, no, I still think they provided lots of really good content, and that's what matters in the end. And I know you cannot mention too much about what's going to happen in 2011 and when things are going to happen, but would it be fair to rightly assume that bigger and better could describe it all?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say it. Bigger and better in 2011, most definitely. We'll probably be starting here. I think spring is obviously a good estimate on when things will start kicking up. And I mean, there's going to be some crazy things coming. I'm not sure when we're going to be announcing any of that. We're obviously still planning it right now. We have a meeting pretty much every week and kind of get everyone up to date on what's been going on. And there's some cool initiatives happening behind the scenes that hopefully we'll be able to talk about soon.
Well, that will be interesting to hear. Would you find it perhaps likely or even probable that we'll see some more or less famous names from the grassroots casting scene join the professional ranks of MLG or other organizations like it in 2011?
We'll have to see. I mean, honestly, I think that Wheat and Sean are probably the best of the best right now. Obviously, you have to mention Artosis and Tasteless in the same breath.
Yes.
Even the past tournament, I actually took a back seat to casting. I kind of removed myself from the situation and came in and helped give Wheat or Sean a break whenever they needed it. But for the most part, I let them cast the entire tournament. And I'm not really sure if we'll be adding more casters. I think the first tournament that we did in Raleigh with the 4 casters there was a little bit too much. And sticking with the same casting team and keeping it as small as possible seems to be really the best thing in my mind. But I also feel for those YouTube casters out there, people like Josh Suth and people, as I'm just forgetting names, but there's so many different YouTube casters. I mean, you can go and Google go on YouTube and just search for StarCraft 2 and you'll see 1,000,000,001 different casters. And they're all great, some of them better than others. But I think that's kind of their place right now. Will they be ever added to StarCraft 2 at MLG? We'll see. But it's definitely going to be Sean and Wheat, I would think, for next year for the majority of the tournaments.
I don't think anyone mind hearing that. Sean and Wheat did an excellent job last time. And MLG Dallas was definitely the pinnacle of the non-Korean StarCraft 2 year, I would say. Of course, yes, you could debate certain things about the format and the rules, but in terms of competitive play, it was kick-ass. And it was great to see Jinro win, my fellow countryman. Yeah, it's looking good. But also, StarCraft 2 is becoming more and more professional as it's growing bigger. And there's more money being pumped into it, corporate money. People are now getting salaries as players, casters, and many other jobs that a year ago, when we only had Brood War, was the wet dream of many nerds. And you mentioned certain YouTube casters. Many of them are now making a decent living from a year ago what they did only for fun. And it's quite breathtaking, really. And people, it's difficult to roll with those sudden punches. And I wanted to ask you about the increasing professionalization and corporatization of the scene, because of course you have a better look at that than most. What are the dangers and the benefits from more money and more sponsorships being pumped into what was originally a very community and passionated thing, this subculture around StarCraft?
Yeah, so I think to look at both sides, really, some of the downfalls of it are if you look at an organization in the past, at least in the United States esports scene, if you look at an organization like CGS, where a ton, probably the most money of any organization ever was pumped in to it, and it kind of failed pretty horribly. And I think that's one thing that the community is always going to be kind of afraid of, that's going to happen. One of the reasons I think that really happened, I mean, I could go on for a while with that, but I don't think esports can actually exist on TV. They were trying to show entire matches in 30 minutes or an hour-long TV show, and it really, especially with a game like StarCraft, just won't work with that. In terms of some of the benefits, obviously more money is great. You can do so many more things with more money. And it's really awesome that the community has so many different aspects to it and that so many people are doing different things, and all of them are actual they have monetary values to them. People that are making a living like Husky and HD and obviously all the other YouTube casters that are on YouTube is great. And then people like myself who somehow got into this position where they can kind of work for the community and also for an organization like MLG is great. People like yourself doing these interviews for the community out there is a great thing too. So I think as more and more money is put into it, as long as people in the community are careful to what they respond to and how they respond to it, I think it's going to be a great year in 2011, regardless of how much money is really pumped into it. Because I think the community and the people involved at those levels are pretty smart, and they're not going to let anything happen to their game of StarCraft 2.
You mentioned community, and of course, you very much work as a link between the corporate MLG and the big body of fans around StarCraft 2, primarily through your podcast, State of the Game, which I think you wrapped up for 2010 only very recently, and will be relaunching in 2011 at some point, I'm sure. How did that come about? How long have you been active doing it? And what is the general purpose behind that show?
Yeah, so state of the game. Let's see. When did I start that? I want to say I started it sometime in June or July.
Yes, I
And it
think
kind of
so.
started. Yeah, it kind of started basically when I worked for MLG doing the WoW scene. I had a podcast back then, and it doesn't actually exist anymore. Thought about bringing it back, but I just love the podcast format. I think that it's a format that hasn't really been explored too much in esports. It really started with the WoW podcast that I did, ArenaCast, and also with DJ Wheat's podcast that he did for CGS when he was working for them when they were still an actual thing.
Hmm.
And since then, he's obviously moved on to shows like Live on 3, Weapon of Choice, and I'm forgetting his other one. Oh, Epileptic Gaming, which actually has
Yeah,
been
that's the
around
one.
for longer than all of those, honestly. But it's more generalized gaming. But I felt like StarCraft 2 really needed a voice like that, and I think the format is perfect for just bringing on personalities in the scene and getting them to talk about as much as I can. Honestly, we get pretty controversial on the show.
You
Obviously,
do.
we have people like In Control on there who is no shy to the trolls, and we'll feed him whatever he feels like feeding him for that week. And we try to get some big name hosts on there. We've had Tasteless on there on the past or in the past. Artosis is a good friend of the show. A little while ago, we had Lee from MLG. And in the future, we'll probably continue to pull some big names. I know that Sundance, the CEO of MLG, has
Uh-huh.
planned to come on in 2011, and
Cool.
I'd love to get some possibly GSL staff on there. I know John is a big fan favorite, and I think that
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
really cool to get him on the show.
Well, it's a great show, I must say, and I wish I was doing it. So we can expect that to come back on the interwebs airs in January, perhaps.
Yeah, I think probably late January. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes right now that we're kind of planning for, and I can't obviously talk about too much. It'll be rolling out soon. I don't know any specific dates, but you will probably be seeing some announcements.
Hmm.
There's at least two that come to mind right now. One probably here within a week or two, and then the other one probably around the first or second week of January. So.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it, and of course, currently Liquid Tyler, which I had the pleasure of meeting in Sweden at DreamHack, by the way, which was great. In Control and Sean, they are your co-hosts. Am I forgetting someone?
No, no, that is all of them.
Well, that's quite a bunch, and yeah, it's a great addition to the community, definitely. Also, of course, the purpose of this interview is to talk about the past year of StarCraft and where we're going beyond. And looking back at the year, StarCraft 2 beta arrived sometime in spring when I was trying to finish up college, which wasn't the best combination, I must admit. And since then, it's just exploded. YouTube casters who were considered big if they had 10,000 subscribers now are working their way towards 500,000. We've had a bunch of tournaments in North America, Europe, and of course Korea. We'll be getting to that. And so much has happened. It is overwhelming. It is a big question, but you can go away and be as epic in your answers as you want. How has the past year of StarCraft 2 been for you? What are your feelings, potential worries, and absolute highlights?
I think it's been an incredible year, and I'm pretty sure that everyone would say the same. I mean, starting back right before the beta was actually officially launched, people were really worried as to how StarCraft 2 was going to change the North American esports scene. Everyone knew that it was going to be big, obviously, but people were really worried about the game and wondering if it had the potential, kind of like StarCraft 1 did,
Yeah.
to really make esports something like it did in South Korea. And people still ask that same question right now. If it's ever going to be as big as it is in South Korea here in the U.S. And we'll have to see. I think moving forward. I mean, GSL just announced their what is it, like $1.2 million or something for a total prize pool in 2011, which is
Yeah, it's
that
sick.
is insane, ridiculous numbers. I can't even believe that I actually just said that and it's still true.
Yeah.
But I think StarCraft 2 in 2010 was almost perfect. I think everything that happened really didn't have any big faults. I think the tournaments that were ran were all ran very smoothly. Still, the biggest thing that comes to mind is that we do need LAN for some of these tournaments, and I'm not
Yes.
sure if it's going to happen. I would love for it to, obviously, and everyone else would as well. But we'll have to see. I think once some of these things in South Korea die down between Blizzard and Kespa, that might be something that we see an inkling of information about. But who knows, really? I mean, Blizzard has so many things going on. They obviously have so many other IPs that they're working on, and I think that it really just comes down to it if Kespa can just stop being Kespa and let Blizzard do its thing, because I think that's really one of the main reasons why we don't have a LAN right now in StarCraft 2. So that's probably one of the biggest, I guess, negative things. Obviously, you saw in the Dallas finals of MLG how it can come into play,
Yes, that
and I
was
really hope that
detrimental.
never, yeah, I hope that never happens again. But if it does, then it's just more proof that we do need a LAN mode. But overall, I think StarCraft 2 2010 was pretty much is the best that anyone could really have hoped for. The money's there right now. We've got GSL, we've got MLG, we've got ESL. Then we have these other small, not really small, but these other tournaments. So that aren't on a league, I guess is the best way to say it. Things like DreamHack, which was an awesome tournament. We've also got Game Goon that just wrapped up in I think Mexico City, and that had a
Yeah.
lot of money on it as well. So hopefully these I guess quote unquote smaller tournaments continue to pop up with huge prize pools like that, because I think that's one of the things that'll keep StarCraft 2 as strong as it was in 2010 going into 2011.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential. But I would like to reiterate one thing that you mentioned, because some viewers might not fully understand what you meant when you said that the reason we don't have LAN is the situation between Kespa and Blizzard. And as I interpret what you're saying, it comes down to the fact that Kespa, the Korean esports organization who completely dominates the existing Brood War scene in South Korea with all the broadcasting rights, never gave Blizzard any royalties or credits for using their product, and now by not having a LAN function, Blizzard can effectively control any game that is being played and also its broadcasting, and it's cooperating with GomTV. And am I on the right track there? Just clarifying for viewers.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that a lot of that is speculation. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
not talked to just to state I have not talked or spoken to Blizzard and heard that that's the reason. If
Of
I did,
course,
I
of
wouldn't even be
course.
saying this. So take that for what it's worth. That's just me speculating. Don't go and start a thread that that's the actual reason, because I want Blizzard to continue liking MLG and liking me. So
No,
don't screw me over in that regard, guys.
I'm pretty sure they won't. But of course, it is. It's an obvious question why there is no LAN support. MLG Dallas showed the need for it quite clearly. But yes, I think for all the newcomers into the StarCraft 2 scene, I think it could be useful with some more background information, especially the current debate. Debate isn't the right word, war that's raging between Kespa and Blizzard in South Korea. So maybe that's something to look at in the future. But also another thing you mentioned, which I wanted to touch upon, is that you said you don't think esports will ever work on TV because it's it's a different form of entertainment, and it's something that has struck me as well, especially now that there are so many broadband connected mobile devices and everything from iPads to smartphones to YouTube services. You can have everything on demand anywhere, so you don't have to follow what a TV company allows you to see at a certain time. So you don't really need TV to broadcast esports professionally anymore, I feel. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, pretty much when you look at the TVization, I'm not really sure how I would say that. I'm just going to say when you put esports on TV and you look at, everyone tries to compare it to poker, and looking at
Yeah.
poker right now, I mean, the tournaments are probably an hour long when it comes to time slots on things like ESPN, and those tournaments last like 24 hours sometimes, where the game, they don't really stop. It's not like an esport tournament where they have a stop and end point. They sit down at a table and finish the game however long it takes, and even then it's so cut up and chopped up that I really don't enjoy watching it anymore. And try to just read. I tend to follow poker somewhat, but not as much as I used to. But it's kind of the same thing for esports. You couldn't have a best of 7 series and play it minute for minute, second for second on the TV because you couldn't ever cut away. Maybe between games, but some of those games last for 45 minutes to an hour, and there's just no way that you could ever put that on TV. And I hope that no one ever tries because it would just be a huge and utter failure. But I think people have learned from the past and with things like CGS that it'll never work on TV, that it should always remain on the internet. And I think numbers are good enough where you really don't need TV right now. People can continue to use the internet, and kind of moving forward, I think that's where new media comes into play and how esports will be able to work with that. So.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. And I mean, I started blogging about Starcraft in early 2009, and just since then, it's not even 2 years ago, accessibility through a variety of devices has just increased so much. Now you can watch StarCraft pretty much anywhere at any time, and that is great. And it's so much more cost efficient to broadcast it on the internet as well. So that is indeed shaping up like a good future. And speaking of which, looking a bit at the year ahead, and going to Korea now in particular, we have seen the Liquid House establish itself there, prominently I'd say, together with the OGS players. And they've taken a major foothold in the GSL. My man Jinro, of course, finishing up in the round of 4 with great glory. And many other players doing very well as well. And I hear that, I know you're close to EG.iNcontroL, so maybe you know more of this, that Evil Geniuses, EG, are having plans of setting up a house in Korea. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I have heard a lot of things about that. I'm not sure how much I can actually speak on, but I will say that, yes, that is true. I'm not sure when it's going to actually happen. Or who's actually going to be going over there. But I do know that there are plans in motion to have something like that set up sometime in 2011.
Well, we can only hope and look forward to it. Are there any other particular predictions or hopes you have for 2011 in terms of the StarCraft 2 esports scene? Anything in particular you'd like to focus on?
Well, really, I just, one of the things that I'm actually kind of worried about is the community. If I hope that they do exactly what happened in 2010, where they were so responsive to tournaments. They weren't they weren't critical of tournaments in the sense that they weren't just constantly bashing them. If they had anything negative to say, for the most part, they would be constructive. And that really helps me, and I think that helps organizations. A lot of people think that we actually don't go and read some of these posts that I put up from MLG for like the feedback threads. After every event on Sunday or Monday, like I did in Dallas, I would put up the ultimate feedback thread. And every one of those posts I would go through and throw into a document, and then we would sit there and bring up each and every single point with some of the bigger names, kind of, I guess, around StarCraft 2 and MLG, and just see what we thought about them. And I think that a lot of other companies and organizations in StarCraft 2 and esports actually do the same. So I hope that they continue to do that and not turn into this. How can I don't know how I could say this without
troll-infested pit of bastards.
Yeah, something like that. I was trying not to insult them as much, but that's probably the best way to put it, honestly.
You can blame me. I said it.
Well, it's not that. I'm just really worried because a lot of these posts and some of the things that actually really bother me are how every thread on Team Liquid, if someone is brought up, say any caster is brought up, there's always that one poster who for some reason has to make it his own initiative and talk about how so-and-so is the best caster and how so-and-so is actually terrible. I've mentioned it before in some of the other interviews that I've done, and I really think esports is going to actually succeed in 2011 with the more people we have involved. And if you don't like what someone is doing, so be it a caster, whatever I am. I don't really consider myself a caster anymore, but I guess an event planner or something like that. Or just any, if you're ever going to criticize anyone for anything they're doing, just try to remember that they're really doing it for the community at the core, or they should be at least. And give them constructive criticism. Don't just say, well, that was terrible. Say, that was terrible, this is why. Everyone reads those criticisms, and we try at least to make sure that doesn't happen again, whatever the criticism was, or if it's a good idea, then we put into effect. So hopefully the community, I think 2010, you guys were great. 2011, just stay the same and don't change into a troll-infested, how did you say it? Troll-infested something or other.
Pit of bastards, yes.
There you go. Don't change into that, guys.
Word. And also, invite friends to the same wonderful activity and culture we have around esports and Starcraft 2. If you can convert your parents, your girlfriend, your other friends, they will be thrilled once they understand it. And they'll be your greatest supporter in sitting in front of the computer even more. So please, guys, spread the word nicely. I have one more thing I'd like to bring up with you before we talk about the GSL finals that is about to take place in a couple of hours between OGS MC and TSL Reign. And that thing is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, considering the scene and the changing in the scene. Namely, we've seen the whole YouTube casting scene explode, and there's been so many tournaments. You brought up many, everything from DreamHack to the one in Cancun to the smaller online based where you can win $200 to the GSLs and the MLG and the ESL. Everything. It's huge, it's small, it's everywhere. But I feel now, for example, this past autumn, I've been watching so much less of the YouTube StarCraft, and I watch a lot of StarCraft, really, man. Because the GSL, and of course MLG, but GSL primarily, they just have such superior production and the most epic games and the best commentators and everything. And I feel that even though the YouTube scene is rich and it's growing, it is also a big free-for-all. It's anarchic. People try to grab the latest TLO and Huck replay, and then everyone casts it everywhere. And I feel that whilst that is good, once people, or rather organizations, come in and make a better job of it, like the GSL and MLG when it's running, but it's not so frequent, then more or less these casters can't compare. Do you see a need for the community to step up even further and become more, well, professional, work together as broadcasters? Or will we continue to see this plethora of various broadcasters doing their own thing and trying to grab the attention?
Yeah, I think obviously if they work together, and I think a lot of them do, you see what I guess the conglomerate that is the Game Station, how they have a ton of people under their wing right now. And that was kind of an initiative to begin doing and bringing everyone together. But in terms of the professionality of YouTube, I think the production value could be a little bit better. But obviously that kind of falls on the technical knowledge of the casters and the people setting that up. But I don't think they need to do anything too different, because if you look at a GOM TV or an MLG to a lesser extent, really the VODs that GOM does are professional for a reason. It's because they have so much money and they have I mean, they're the number one esports organization right now when it comes to StarCraft 2. So you can't really, as a YouTube caster, I don't think you can compare yourself to them. And if you can, then that's great to begin with. But I think that YouTube will kind of always be what it is right now. And I don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever. I honestly feel it's kind of like a quote-unquote gateway drug into the whole StarCraft scene. Definitely. You can go to YouTube and type in HD Husky or StarCraft 2 and watch any one of those casters, and it's really a good place for people to start, because when you look at casters like Artosis and Tasteless, they are pretty hardcore in the sense that they don't really shy away from using any of these game-specific terms, and some of those YouTube casters are very quote-unquote entry-level into the whole scene.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing. I don't think that should change. The production values could probably obviously always be updated somewhat, but that's going to obviously be more money and time spent by those YouTube casters. So if they do it, then so be it, and that's great. But if they don't, I think that's fine too. I don't think that that's going to hurt them in the long run. And I think that people obviously need to remember that GOM TV has kind of unlimited funds when it comes to that. And some of these YouTube guys don't whatsoever. They're just doing it because they enjoy doing it. And that's not a bad thing whatsoever. I think it should continue to exist like it did in 2010 moving forward.
Absolutely. Me, myself, I do this purely for the pleasure. And even though I have professional ambitions with it, it's still the love for the game that fuels me. And I'm sure that's the same for most, if not all, YouTube casters out there. Just wanted to tap your brain in terms of that. However, moving on to really the topic of the day, because depending on where you are in the world right now, the GSL finals is taking place today or tomorrow. For me, it's tomorrow. And it's going to be great. Though a bit of an unanticipated pair in the finals, OGS MC and TSL Rain. What are your thoughts?
Well, we talked about it kind of on State of the Game, and I honestly feel that in my mind, the finals has already happened between Jinro and Iron.
Absolutely.
I think going into this final, no one has Rain to win, and if they do, then they are betting on the underdog for sure. I think Iron, if he does, I mean, everyone says that Iron was a very nervous player, but it seems like now he's kind of gotten those under control, and he's obviously playing extremely well, but I don't know if Rain has what it takes. A lot of people criticize him for being an effective, cheesy, quote, all-in player. And if he can do that and actually beat Iron, I think that'll probably be the biggest upset. And it would honestly be a great way to end 2010 when it comes to StarCraft 2. Uh-huh. But is it the likeliness of it actually happening is very, very slim in my eyes. And like you said, we might, I think this was before the interview, we might actually just be making giant fools of ourselves come Sunday when this is actually released, I think.
Yeah.
And if Rain ends up winning, then that's going to be huge. But I don't know if it's going to happen. I would expect it to be pretty, I guess, favored in Iron's eyes. But
yeah,
if it's competitive, then that'll be great. So.
Yeah, I predict 4-1 or 4-2, actually. I don't think MC will be able to just walk over, because there will be some nice slices of cheddar in his way. But it's going to be an epic feast, absolutely, and I'm going to watch it when I come home from work, 6 a.m. in the morning, Saturday. It's going to be a feast. Anyhow, JP, McDaniel, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. You're a true scholar and a gentleman of esports. Do you have any famous last words to round things off with?
Well, thank you so much, man. Just look forward to MLG and State of the Game, and continue watching StarCraft 2, everyone out there. Support it as best as you can. Go on Team Liquid, share your love of StarCraft 2, and just continue doing what you guys have done all throughout the year. In 2011 will most definitely be an amazing year for StarCraft 2 and esports.
Most definitely. And stay tuned for further updates about State of the Game, which I know will have some new additions and lots of news to present very soon. So stay tuned for that, guys. JP, again, it's been a pleasure. GG to you.